You see them on CFI. We on it all night. 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 Touchdown! Highlights and rankings. They cover the toughest there in America. Charlotte football insiders. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Or you can catch them on that podcast. All over the state with Hoof, Mount Creek, Myers Park, Audrey Kettle, West Charlotte, Olympic, Providence Day, Mountain Island Charter, and so many more. CFI, we on it all night. 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 CFI, we on it all night.
Welcome to Between the Lines, your deep dive into Charlotte metro area high school football. I am the pet man, Matt Morrow, and once again, we are back for another fun week of talking high school football here in the Charlotte metro area. We had a lot of interesting results last week. We talked about on Friday Night Live, and some big games coming up this week. We're going to talk about on this show tonight, and also on tomorrow night's Football Focus Weekly at 8 p.m. with all of the guys that you know and love. All right, here shortly we're going to talk to Southlake Christian offensive lineman Hunter Tedder, who's had a tremendous season so far up front for the Eagles. We'll talk to him a little bit about how things are going with him, his recruiting process, and what the experience is like is playing at Southlake Christian. We got 3 comments in the bucket here. J-Man, the first one in the house tonight. Good to see you, man, as always. Of course, Karen Belk is here. She's here. Kim Watts, third on the list tonight. Kim, I'm disappointed. You're usually first. We got to do better. But happy Tuesday indeed. All right. With no further ado, we are going to bring on Southlake Christian offensive lineman Hunter Tedder and talk to him for a few minutes here on Between the Lines. Hunter, how you doing, man?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. I appreciate you being on Between the Lines tonight. You're a very talented offensive lineman from Southlake Christian. First of all, talk to me, man. How is the season going for you personally and you guys over at Southlake Christian?
The season so far, it's been really up and down. We've had a lot of miscues, a lot of misalignments, a lot of injuries, but we're starting to get our flow back, and we're on pace for a little short burst at the end of the season.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. I appreciate the honesty. I appreciate the honesty too, man. I've seen you guys really have some success running the ball, man. What's going on with that running game over there?
I want to shout out new running back, just came from Mooresville, Malachi Gwynn. He's really stepped up because honestly, before he came there, we had no success running the ball. So I give all props to him and all props to the other offensive linemen. They've been working their butt off nonstop, always working. And I want to thank Coach Freeman, line coach, Coach Hughes. He always has the motto of win today.
Mm-hmm.
And if we just win in that one thing today, it adds up.
Good stuff, man. Awesome. Obviously, you're a highly recruited prospect as well. Over 20 offers so far in your recruiting process. Talk to us about how that process is going, and do you have any favorites right now?
Honestly, the recruitment process itself, it's the most exhausting yet most rewarding thing because I'm getting to further my educational career and still play the game that I love. And it's been crazy, especially throughout the summer. My name really started getting out there, and I want to thank honestly everyone at Southlake, Breland Wiggins, Coach Farley, and of course Coach Hughes. I just want to thank all those guys for like really getting my name out there, and I have a couple of schools that's right here around the top of my mind: Gardner Webb, Lenore Ryan, Catawba College, Southwestern Oklahoma. Um, those are like the main top ones right now. I'm excited for all the opportunities that I'm given, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I don't care if it is Division One, Division 2, Division 3, JUCO, NAIA. I don't care what division. All I want to do is make my teammates around me and my coaching staff love me. That's the goal.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome stuff right there. I love to hear that. And I'm sure those programs love to hear that too, for sure. Talk to me about playing at Southlake. A lot of people may not be aware, of the school and, the program and everything. What's it like playing at Southlake Christian?
Playing at Southlake Christian Academy is honestly the best thing that has ever happened to me. I was at upper public school, then transferred down to Southlake, and everyone gave me love. Everyone's all welcoming there. You really strive in the classroom, which is what I love about it, because it's student athlete, and just honestly, the recruitment there is really well. If you want to get your name out there, the coaches actually coach you, and just the Southlake Christian Academy. I'm excited for its future because Coach Hughes' win today culture. It's definitely going to succeed, and it's going to succeed, and it has succeeded.
Awesome, man. Great stuff. Awesome. My last question for you, and you kind of, did it throughout some of the other answers there. But who do you want to thank so far in your career for the football success that you've had?
Of course, I want to thank God. I want to thank my parents. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I want to thank my personal trainer, Tremaine Stevens. Amazing guy. Love him. And one of the biggest things for people in general is to have a good person behind you that always helps drive you, even push you back a line. And I want to thank my girlfriend. She has really pushed me and shoved me in a better way. Got me closer to God, which is really a big part of my faith journey. And I want to thank once again Coach Hughes. I've loved since he's came in, and I can't wait to continue to strive.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, you're a young man, but you shouting at your girlfriend, you're a smart man.
Well, typically that's not like me, but she's a big part of my life.
That's great. That's great, man. That's awesome. Well, Hunter, like I've told you before, I think you're an awesome player. I've written about you, and we've got you ranked as you put out there on Prep Red Zone North Carolina. You deserve, all those accolades. And I know in your recruiting process, you'll settle on the right school, and they'll be lucky to have you and your services, man. I wish you much success, and we'll see you out there soon, man.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hunter.
Yes, sir.
All right, that was Hunter Tedder, big offensive lineman from Southlake Christian. Really talented young man. He's got over 20 offers. You've heard some of his favorites that he's interested in. And, I think he's going to, do some big things, not only the rest of this season, but going on deeper into his college career for sure. All right, so let's get going on Between the Lines. We got a lot on if I get the right thing on the screen. Good gracious. There we go. So tonight, of course, we got our same setup. We got, of course, the analysis, some team shout outs, some deep dive previews, and your comments. So let's get going. We're gonna kick it off with the new CMS Best to Last rankings. There's not a lot of changes, honestly. A lot of games kind of went, the way we thought they would go. So there's really only two changes. Palisades moves up to 5. Independence drops to 6. Palisades with a big win over Ardrey Kell, 14-11, and then Independence fell in the showcase game to West Charlotte, 31-7. Olympic moves up to 8. They won a big game at home against A.L. Brown, 24-21. That put them in a tie for first place in the Greater Metro Conference. And then, of course, Ardrey Kell, we just mentioned the game with Palisades. They dropped 1 spot to number 9. Other than that, I didn't feel like there were really any changes warranted based on last week's results. Now, going forward, we're in conference play, so some of these teams that are ranked near each other are going to play each other, and we'll have some changes. But last week was not really a week where we had a lot of kind of inter conference battles that made a difference in the best to last. So we're getting to that point of the season where we kind of got a good feeling of where teams are kind of slotted here. Back in the day, we used to talk about tiers a lot when doing these rankings. And now I think we've got some clear tiers developing where you got the top, kind of like the top 4. And then you've got kind of that next 5 or 6 there. And then you've got a tier that can pull an upset, on any given night, like we've seen, with some of these teams. And then you kind of got the teams, more toward the end there. So pretty good idea on where a lot of teams are here in CMS. So we'll see what the guys have to say tomorrow night. But, I mean, to be honest, not a lot of movement this past week. Dirty Dozen was kind of similar, although we do have a couple new teams we're going to introduce here. No movement on the left side. Everybody stayed the same up to number 8. Did move Crest up 2 spots. They had a very impressive win over South Point Belmont, 42-7. And I really thought that warranted a multiple spot move here in the Dirty Dozen. Ashbrook's at 9, Kings Mountain 10. They will play this week in a big game. We'll talk about that game tomorrow on Football Focus Weekly. And then Palisades moves back up into the dozen at 11, and then J.M. Robinson moves up at 12. On the edge, South Meck still hot, 6 wins in a row after defeating West Meck last week. Charlotte Catholic, Lake Norman with a big win over previously undefeated Statesville. We'll talk about that a little bit more tonight. And then Independence, and then Northwest Cabarrus, who is playing very well out of Cabarrus County, had a big win last week. So the dozen with a little bit of movement, a little bit more than the CMS Best to Last because it's a bigger area, but still not too much going on there. I thought about you. I thought about you on that. I said, y'all gonna be excited. You'll be excited when you're off the edge. So yeah, you're off the edge, man. Congratulations. I'm sorry I missed those other comments. Travis Styles, I just mentioned it, so it's good comment here. Kings Mountain versus Ashbrook Friday. So barn burner. If Kings Mountain wins, do you think they make the top 25? Well, what ranking are you talking about? Because there's a lot of different rankings out there. But I think so. If you mean top 25 in the state overall, they have a good shot because Ashbrook is well regarded and rightfully so. They're well coached. They have a lot of talent. So they have a good shot. But I kind of have to know which poll you're talking about because I have to see where Ashbrook is because that's how a lot of this works. If you beat a top 25 team in the poll, then you have a shot of, pretty much replacing them when you're on that kind of scale. So I think so, but not saying that, not knowing which ranking you're talking about there. That game's on our short list. Right now, I'm kind of in between because I have some work stuff, to do on Friday. So I don't know if we'll make it there, but it's on the very short list this week. There's not too many games, in all honesty, that me and producer would consider going to. So we might be out there if time allows us to get there on time. All right, so let's move on to the shout outs. The teams that played great last week. We had some really good ones. Mount Pleasant. We talked about this game last week on this show. They knocked off the undefeated Forest Hill Yellow Jackets 21-14. And in reading about this game, it was a good job of Mount Pleasant playing their game, slowing the game down, running the football, time of possession, keeping it out of the Yellow Jackets' hands, who can be really explosive when they have a chance to make those big plays offensively. Now, the other part of this is when Forest Hills did have the ball, they didn't generate those, kind of big game-changing plays that we, come to see. Colin Polk had a good game, 14 carries, 83 yards on the ground, but not the big explosive game we're used to seeing. Passing-wise, they helped, talented quarterback Noah Furr to 114 yards passing. So they did a good job of not giving up the big plays. They forced a couple of turnovers at that. So when you do that, that limits possessions, and it gives you a chance, to control the game flow and ultimately win the game. And that's what Mount Pleasant did in this one. They shut out Forest Hill in the first half, and they were able to hold on for the 21-14 victory. And that's a big win for them in conference play also. Another undefeated team that went down was Lake Norman. They knocked off Statesville in an impressive fashion on the road, 35-0. Wow. When I looked at the numbers in this game, the big thing was Statesville just, having some turnover issues. In general, they had 7 fumbles. They lost 3 of those fumbles, but that speaks to what Lake Norman was doing on defense, especially. Impressive stuff. We know that they have some good playmakers over there. Zytavian Rucker, defensive lineman, had a big game. We know, Mason Hefner is a player. Memphis Barb is a player. Jalen Glover is a player. So they have some guys that can really make some big plays, and that defense really, shone bright on this one. And then Caden Kraft offensively also did a really good job of, being efficient with the football, not making a ton of mistakes, giving, Statesville extra possessions, things of that nature. So really good stuff for the Wildcats there. Providence continues to play well. It's our 3rd win in a row. We talked about this game last week on this show. Both teams were 3-3, Providence and East Meck, and Providence ends up getting an important win, 35-7 over East Meck. And the big thing in this one was, just that when Providence was able to get a lead, they led 14-0 at halftime. And if you can make East Meck play from behind, that's the best thing you want to do, to have success. They're not a quick strike, kind of offense. If they're able to keep the game close, that's when they're dangerous. But having that kind of margin just kind of, control the play, for them on throughout. Luke Metter, the starting quarterback, 3 touchdown passes. Caleb Vines had a nice game, 151 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. That might be Petman player worthy. I noticed that. Defensively, leading tackler was Colton Bogan with a very nice game of 15 tackles, 8 of them being solo tackles. And then Corey Cunningham, the very talented and highly recruited defensive lineman, had 3 sacks. So they had a number of players play really well in this one, and they've got a shot. Still in the conference. I know conference doesn't matter for playoffs, but they still do have a shot because I don't think they've played Palisades just yet. Let me double check that here on the schedule. No, they play Palisades. Oh, they got a bye this week, and then they play Palisades in 2 weeks at Palisades. So Palisades is the conference leader after they knocked off Ardrey-Kell. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's show. But that'll be another big game for Providence right there. So they're playing well, and they got 2 weeks to get ready for the conference leader in Palisades. So things are trending in the right direction for the Panthers for sure. Mallard Creek, good bounce back victory over North Mac, 33-14. It looks like they corrected some of those issues that popped up in their game against West Charlotte a couple of years ago. They led 19-7 at the half in this one. The young quarterback, Kalen Napier, got the majority of the snaps here through 2 touchdown passes. Xavier Edmond had a nice game running the football, 61 yards and a touchdown. And then defensively, they had some guys play well. I know Askia Mustafa tagged me in his highlights, and he had a couple of fumbles that were some nice plays there. For North Mech, they still have some guys play well. Running back Gabe McLaurin is a talented player, man. He had 100 yards on the ground on 17 carries. Defensively, they had a couple guys stand out. Darius Scarlett, we interviewed him after their victory over Hopewell. He had 15 tackles. And then Mikey McGill, the middle linebacker, 9 tackles and 2 tackles for loss. So, once again, I say this about North Mac all the time. They have good, talented players. Sometimes it just gets to be a numbers game with how many, you have versus other teams here. So, East Rowan. Now, this was a big, big win, a huge win for them over Salisbury. East Rowan's been down for a while, and this was a comeback victory for them. They were down 24-14 at halftime, and came back in the second half, shut Salisbury out, and scored 13 points to win 27-24. And it was a balanced effort here. They want to be a running team, but their quarterback, Julian Cobble, had a nice game, 194 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. He might be a Pet Man player. And then receiver, oh my goodness, Jason Bonds, number 15, 10 catches for 164 yards and 3 touchdowns. Wow. What a game for Jason Bonds, man. So, yeah, I can tell you, he's going to be a Batman player. That's a great game. And I don't know him offhand, so I'm going to have to look him up and, see what his game is about. But, yeah, East Rowan, I believe this was the game where they were dedicating the stadium to their old coach, W.A. Klein, who had some great years there. So that's a great dedication, man. I know defensively their standout is Asher Tesh, number 11. He had a big game with 13 tackles overall. So, I mean, shout out to the Mustangs, man. That is a huge, huge win up here in Granite Quarry, up near Salisbury, ironically. So, good stuff right there, man. Cannon, we haven't talked about Cannon much this year, but they got some talent over there. They knocked off previously undefeated Country Day 21-15 in a game we talked about on this show last week. Let's see, we got a comment that came in here. Okay, Mr. Porter, we'll get to that at the end of this segment. Give me 1 second. But yeah, Cannon, steady game right here. They were up 21-6 going into the fourth quarter. They held off Country Day and tried to come back in the fourth, but they were able to turn over Country Day a few times. They got 3 interceptions on the night. They didn't turn the ball over. Lucas Lopez, talented sophomore quarterback, had 3 touchdown passes. Marcus Sales had a nice game. He had an interception, kickoff return for a touchdown, and a fumble recovery. So He had a big game, but the biggest game of all was Jackson Laws, and he is a terror on the defensive line. As a defensive lineman, he had 15 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks. That is incredible production right there. And I know he's among the leaders in the state with sacks. So once everybody updates their stats, we'll see where he stands right now. But I know he's amongst the top players there. So Cannon is a team that you have to, account for if you're in that private school league there, because they're not pushovers. On the Country Day side of things, of course, you got to talk about Braylon Clark, who had a huge game in spite of, some of the turnover issues they had. 10 catches for 186 yards. Wow. What a player, man. And he's only a sophomore. He's a 5-star guy. And he seems like he gets an offer every 2 days. And rightfully so. He's that good, man. It's fun to watch his film, for sure. South Met, we want to talk about them again. They're now 6-1 on the season. Big win over West Met, 6 wins in a row. 45-20 for the Sabres. And the hashtag Road Warriors are just rolling, man. They are playing well. Carter Gills had another good game, 3 touchdown passes. Rayvon Pauling, who we shouted out on Pet Man's Players before, that running back, 130 yards rushing and a touchdown. And then I know defensively, their linebacker, Brody Evans, had a pick 6 and over 10 tackles, double-digit tackles in that game. So South Met, man, they've got a bye, and then they've got Huff. And that's going to be a big game here in Charlotte. And I plan to be at that game in 2 weeks. So that'll be our first look at South Met in person this year. And we'll see what's clicking with those guys. For the West Met side, Cameron Moore had a nice game, 100 yards receiving and a touchdown. West Met's playing a lot of young guys this year. And they've been in a couple games. So the good thing is it's going to be good for the future. They're playing a freshman quarterback. And I've seen his film before, and I think he's a talented kid in Drake Lineberger. I saw West Met in person during the preseason, and this young man has a strong arm. He's developing his accuracy. He was 14-24 in this game for 210 yards. So when you're doing that as a freshman against a 6-1 South Met team, you got a bright future ahead of you. He's got a brother at receiver, Dylan Lineberger, who's got some talent too. He had 5 catches for 62 yards in this game as well. So future's going to be bright at West Met, but they just got to go through those growing pains right now. West Cabarrus, they remain undefeated in conference play. They had another win, 17-6 over Harding to go 3-0 in the conference. They have a big game this week against Olympic, who is also 3-0 in the conference. So that game is essentially for first place. West Cabarrus led 10-0 at halftime. Harding got a touchdown, made it 10-6. But West Cabarrus was able to come back and get another touchdown for that final margin. In this game, Noah Carpenter, the running back, had a big game. 18 carries for 126 yards and a touchdown for West Cabarrus. And then obviously defensively, they played very well. Colum Stewart, the edge defensive lineman, 7 tackles and a tackle for loss there. So good game for him. And for Harding, looks like they had a guy that played well. Number 2, Zolian McNeil. He's a defensive back, had 2 interceptions. Might be a Pet Man player right there. It's a pretty good game right there. And then Jamarcus Harrison had 19 carries, 71 yards, and the lone touchdown for the Rams in that one. And then Hunter Huss, they're 5-2 overall. They had a close win over Forest View, 32-29. And on this show last week, I said this was going to be a game to watch because Forest View was better than their record. And they nearly pulled the upset there. Hunter Huss led 25-7 at halftime. But then Forest View did not quit, putting up 22 points in the second half and nearly getting the upset here. But Hunter Huss quarterback Ethan Presley having a really good season, threw for 312 yards and 4 touchdowns in this one. His main receiver, oh man, he was a Pet Man player a couple weeks ago. Quincy Fortenberry, 7 catches, 121 yards, and 3 touchdowns. For the Forest View side, Little John at running back had a nice game, 23 carries for 130 yards and a touchdown. And then quarterback Cooper Phillips added 2 rushing touchdowns in that one. Forest View's got a good offensive line. They can run the football, can move the line of scrimmage. Defensively for Hunter Huss, looks like Kamari Falls was the leading tackler with 13 tackles on the night, and he also added a sack to that. So Hunter Huss 5-2, having a good year. They got Crest coming up. We'll talk about that game here in a little bit. All right, couple comments here. Mr. Bevilacqua, big time Mount Pleasant. Yeah, I talked about you guys to kick off this segment. You can go back and hear what I said once the show is over there, man. But good job. Congratulations. That's a big win for you guys. All right, we got Lindell Porter. 8A state playoffs. Do you think it's realistic that 4 teams from Charlotte could have the top 4 seeds in Huff and 2 through 4, meaning West Charlotte, Mallard Creek, and Myers Park in whatever order they finish in? I wish I could say yes. The conspiracy theorist in me says they will never let Charlotte have top 4 seeds. I just want you to think about this. How is it that every year, and it's been it bears out that we play the best football here in the Charlotte area, yet our top teams have to go on the road in the playoffs? How does that keep happening? They talk about strength of schedule and RPI and all this stuff. Yet we beat up on each other in the regular season, but then when the playoffs come, we're always going somewhere, whether it's the mountains or up in Greensboro or Winston-Salem area, So I don't think it's realistic. And I say that without looking at the RPI. And I said we're going to look at the RPI. We'll look at RPI on the show tomorrow and see what it's looking like. That'll be our first look at it. I know High School OT has done some playoff projections and things of that nature. They really get into that up there. But I wish we could, because I think it's great to have, obviously big time home playoff games here in Charlotte. And we've seen it. We've seen the environments and what they are in those big time playoff games. And usually, sad to say, it's usually when we're playing each other. But throughout the years, you just think about some of those big time playoff games with when they were Vance and Huff, or Mallard Creek and Huff, or Butler and Vance, have met throughout the playoffs, and they've always been great environments. And I really wish we could get that consistently. But for this year, I don't think we'll get the top 4. Now, I will say the better chance of that happening would be out of that MEC Power 6 conference, because all those teams in that league have pretty decent records and pretty strong strength of schedules, and those things will help with the RPI. So there's a shot that they could get maybe 2 of the top seeds out of that conference when you think about West Charlotte and maybe a Mallard Creek there. So maybe 3. You get West Charlotte, Mallard Creek, and Huff possibly. But other than that, I don't think we'll get 4, unfortunately. Because Huff and Myers Park, you guys are in the same conference there. So, but good question. Really good question there, man. Appreciate that. All right, let's move forward here. We're going to start looking at some games to preview here on Friday night. First one, Hickory Ridge and Cox Mill. And you're probably asking me, why is this game on there? But Cox Mill has been playing well. They've won their last 2 games, and they're going to try to extend that winning streak to 3 games here. And if they are able to do that, they'll have a a shot at being tied for second place in the conference because we have the 2 3-0 teams in the conference, Olympic and West Cabarrus playing each other as well. So we'll talk about that game on, excuse me, the big show, Football Focus Weekly tomorrow night. But when you look at this one, let's take a look at Cox Mills' game last week and see how they were able to pick up a close victory over Central Cabarrus 17-14 here. And they were able to do it by scoring all 17 points in the second half. They were down 6-0 at the half there. But it was a balanced offensive effort. They did run for 156 yards as a team. Sion Lattimore had a nice game, talented receiver. Usually his dad's on here. I don't think his dad's on here tonight, but 6 catches for 81 yards there. So some nice production from him. And then defensively, they had a couple guys step up. Looks like Dane Schwind and Adrian Mofford were the leading tacklers for them. And then Adrian Mofford also had an interception. So, defensively, they did what they needed to do there. 2 rushing touchdowns, one for Juice Hall and one for Mr. Richardson there. So, winning low-scoring games is always a good sign for a team overall. If you're able to pull out the close ones, build your confidence. You know how to play under pressure situations. And that's a county rival in Central Cabarrus. So, Cox Mills should be feeling pretty good about themselves going into another county rival up against Hickory Ridge, who's, kind of had, some struggles, this season. Let's see. We got a comment here. What do we got here? What's up, man? We're going to talk about that game tomorrow on a Football Focus Weekly. That's probably the biggest game in the Charlotte metro area. So on this show, we go deep. We talk about some of the other games. I can tell you actually what the games we're going to talk about tomorrow on a Football Focus Weekly. Let me pull up my list here. Let's see. Besides Providence, I'm not Providence, good grief. Besides Kings Mountain and Ashbrook, we are going to discuss North Meck at Butler, Chambers at Independence, Sun Valley at Charlotte Catholic, Olympic at West Cabarrus, and the Battle of Allegheny between Berry and Harding. So those are the games we'll discuss tomorrow night on Football Focus Weekly. But yeah, that's a huge one. We had a comment earlier about that game as well. So people are excited. I know that's a big one between Cleveland and Gaston County. You good, man? You good? Hey, it's all good, man. Luke Zabo says Coach Gentry will have the Bulls back. Trust his process. Yeah. I mean, they will be. They will be. He's built programs in Cabarrus County before, obviously with all the success he had at Northwest Cabarrus, and we were there when they were undefeated. They played Central Cabarrus when they were undefeated over at Northwest, and it was a huge environment, and they were able to win that game to go to 9-0. And we talked to him after the game, and the thing he said was it was the weight room. That's how he built that program. So I am very confident that once this season's over, they're going to live in the weight room, and they'll be stronger next year. They've got good feeder programs over there. I know the Harrisburg Cowboys are big, and their middle school's right there. So I don't have any doubts that, he's going to turn that program around in probably a pretty short time, to be all honest with you. All right, Statesville and Davie County. Can Statesville bounce back on the road? Now, Davie County is 4-2, and they've had some impressive wins themselves so far this year. So it's not going to be easy. The big thing to watch here is, can Statesville cut down on the turnovers? That's what really hurt them against Lake Norman. I thought they did a pretty good job in slowing down, a powerful Lake Norman running game. Davie County can really, kind of throw the ball. They got some talented guys. They got a talented quarterback, the sophomore, who can really throw it. And then Ethan Driver on the outside is a really talented receiver, kind of underrated in my honest opinion. So we'll see. I think they'll be definitely more competitive this week than they were, against Lake Norman with all the kind of the turnover issues there. Um, Porter Ridge at Marvin Ridge, Battle of the Ridges. We talk about this game every year, and I always, wonder where did this whole obsession with naming schools Ridge come from? Because you think about it, there's a lot of ridges that are new schools, man. I mean, look, we got three on the screen right there: Porter Ridge, Marvin Ridge, Hickory Ridge. I don't know. I don't know where that came from, but the big thing here is, can Marvin Ridge get the offense going? Their last game, I'm trying to get to it here, but I know they didn't have a lot of offensive production. I think let me see who they played last week. I don't have it on my thing here, but I know offensively they've been known to have a pretty strong running game, and this year they've been doing it more with the pass this year. So they played Weddington, so I mean there's a caveat with that, but still, they have been more so of a passing team, which is a little different from their normal preferred style of attack. But they've got a couple quarterbacks that can make some things happen. Then of course they got Alex Voss on the outside, who is a big time playmaker committed to Boston College. So this is a game where you got two Division I receivers, because on the other side for Porter Ridge, having a great season is Rayshawn Elmore, committed to East Carolina. So, I mean, you want to see some Division I wide receiver talent. This is the game you want to go to. And then in Union County, you never know, man. You never know. Sometimes, when you look at the records, these matchups are big time rivalries down there. You can't just go off the record. You can't just go off the record, especially when it's a Union County matchup. These guys know each other inside and out. So it's going to be a nice environment down there, for sure. Luke Zabo says Porter Ridge, Marvin Ridge, and Hickory Ridge all opened the same year. Good gracious. Wow. That's a trivia fact that I would have never gotten right there. That is something else. Wow. Well, I don't know what year that was, but they were obsessed with ridges. I don't know why. There's a couple other schools, I think, up in Raleigh. There's like a Cedar Ridge up there. There's like some Ridge Road schools around here somewhere. So it was a hot name for a while. Speaking of names, we got a inter-county battle, West Rowan and East Rowan. Now, we just talked about East Rowan with the big upset on Salisbury. Now, can they build off of it is the question. West Rowan's starting to get itself together too. West Rowan beat South Rowan. He's talking about inter-county matchups. Well, West Rowan won 48-6 last week, and they did it on the power of a nice run game. Running back Devon White, 31 carries, 188 yards, and a touchdown. That's some nice production right there. They didn't get too much out the passing game, but if you're running for 188, I guess you don't need it. They had another guy, Jamonte Cox, ran for 91 yards and a touchdown. So you're running the ball like that, there's no need to throw it, really. So that's impressive stuff for sure. And then, of course, defensively, they played well. Caden Sanders, he actually sent me his stats here. 14 tackles, 2 tackles for loss from his linebacker position. They had 3 sacks as a team. So great team effort overall, getting that big win. I believe that puts them back to 3-3 on the season. Yep, and they're 2-1 in conference. So it's a big game. Big game. West Rowan, East Rowan. Obviously, you can't take East Rowan lightly after they knocked off Salisbury, who's a traditional power, having a little bit of a down year for them. But, they're still respected for sure. A.L. Brown and Central Cabarrus, both teams coming off tough losses. Of course, A.L. Brown lost to Olympic, 24-21. Central Cabarrus losing that game to Coxville. We just talked about 17-14. Big key here, can A.L. Brown slow down Central Cabarrus running back DeMonte James? Because even in the loss last week, He had over 150 yards rushing and a touchdown. Central Cabarrus has been playing a lot of close games this year, and they just haven't been able to get over the hump. And that's the sign of a team that's just learning how to win in these close games. First year for head coach Donnie Kiefer. They're 2-4 overall. So this is a big game for them to try to get back close to 500 and get even in conference play at 2-2. They're 1-2 in the conference. But listen to their games this year, man. They lost. They beat Montgomery Central 16-11. They lost in overtime to Northwest Cabarrus 27-21. They lost to a good Mount Pleasant team 28-20. They lost to Olympic 17-13. They lost to Cox Mills 17-14 in their last two games. So they're not a team A.L. Brown can take lightly here, and not that they would, because I think they know what Central Cabarrus has. But what those games tell me is they're playing solid defense. Like, their defense has only given up 28 points at the most this year. So when you play solid defense, you got to be in these close games. They just got to find a way to make the critical plays, to turn those close losses into victories. So they're a dangerous team here. And in conference play, after this A.L. Brown game, they finish up with Berry, West Cabarrus, at Harding, 2 games that they'll be favored in. The West Cabarrus game, can be a big game right there, not only for conference, but for, playoffs, seeding and even getting into the playoffs. So if they're able to get this A.L. Brown game and start stacking a couple wins there, they could, kind of get into the playoffs. And then, with the way they play, close football games, good defense, they could be a team to watch there. Now, A.L. Brown had a close game. Of course, we just mentioned that against Olympic. And they just had some, critical mistakes themselves in that one. I know special teams was a big deal in this one. Olympic was able to get, I believe, a key kickoff return that was big. Chance Cato, the Olympic quarterback, had a good game. They threw for 240 yards. So those are some of the things that they'll have to work on. But their running back, Lamar Greer, had a really good game, probably Petman player worthy. 124 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. So, that's going to be a key guy. It's like he got 2 really talented running backs, and Lamar Greer and DeMonte James for their respective teams here. So that'll be an important game to watch right there in the Greater Metro Conference. Northwest Cabarrus and Salisbury. Northwest Cabarrus quietly, I feel like no one's talking about them, but they've quietly had a very strong season here. And a game that I said we need to watch, Northwest Cabarrus went out and beat Carson, who's much improved, 49-14. And this game was tied at halftime at 14. Northwest Cabarrus came out in the second half and beat Carson 35-0. So they are a team that can turn it on, obviously. Quarterback Hudson Irwin had a nice game with 195 yards and 3 touchdown passes. Their running back, the best running back in the area that you don't know, Titus Troy, is a sophomore, 18 carries, 228 yards, 2 touchdowns. Really talented young man. I saw him at the CFI Carolinas make a showcase back in the spring. I said, this guy's a player. He's going out here and proving it. Josiah McLean, 2-way player, had 73 yards receiving and a touchdown. And then obviously defensively, it was a team effort. Overall, it was a good job there. Malachi Norris had a sack. Josiah McLean also had an interception to go with those receiving yards. So, hey, good stuff right here. I posed the question, is Northwest Cabarrus the best team in Cabarrus County? It's close between them and J.M. Robinson. I'm giving J.M. Robinson the edge right now. But I know these guys are going to match up here pretty soon. Let's see. Let's go to the schedule. Yeah, it's the last game of the regular season on Halloween night. Oh, boy. That might be on the short list right there. I have to check that one out. That's good stuff right there. But, yeah, Northwest Cabarrus is a really talented team that's playing some good football right now. And then, of course, Salisbury, they had a tough loss to East Rowan. Can they bounce back? I still think they're a dangerous team. They're really well coached with Coach Trevette and those guys up there. They have a couple guys that can make some plays. So they're going to have some pride in their program to, try and bounce back from that game against East Rowan. Concord, not Concord. Well, Cannon School is in Concord, but they're going on the road to play an undefeated Charlotte Latin team. We saw Cannon knock off previously undefeated Country Day last week. Could they do it again, this time on the road? Now, Charlotte Latin has been playing really good football with Troy Logan at the quarterback spot. Mr. Douglas, I don't want to mess your first name up. At the running back spot, Matthew Barber on the offensive line. Those guys have been playing some really efficient football on both sides of the ball. This is going to be a good test for them. Let me see if I can get to their schedule here and talk about who they've played so far here. So my computer slows down. Let's see here. We're going to go to schedule here. And we got – so Latin so far this season is 6-0. So they, obviously very impressive start. They defeated Mitchell, Ravenscroft, South Lake Christian, Metrolina Christian Christ School, and Langtree. So, some people may say that, it's not the strongest schedule, but now they're getting into their conference play, which Cannon, is a part of that. So they finished with Cannon, Providence Day, Country Day, and Charlotte Christian. So now we're going to see, with Charlotte Latin, you can see kind of where they stack up with the local teams here. The good thing is they've had 2 weeks to get ready for Cannon, so that definitely helps them. Plus, it's a home game. Charlotte Latin has some really good fans over there. So I'm really interested to see how this game plays out because both sides have some really good talent. We talked about some of the talent Cannon has earlier in the show when we were doing the shout-outs. So that's a good private school matchup right there. Then we got a game little outside of our normal area, but they've got some talent on these two teams, man. Shelby at Lincolnton. I think it could be high scoring. This is a big conference game out there, the Southern Piedmont 3A, 2A, 1A combo conference. Of course, we know Shelby with Land Farmer at the quarterback spot, how explosive they are. Emmanuel Collins at receiver. And then some of the defensive guys with Hollifield at the linebacker spot and another Hollifield on the offensive line. For Lincolnton, it's the Lynch brothers at the quarterback and receiving spots. And they also put Brother Lynch in the running back spot as well to get him the football. Lathan Mayfield at the linebacker spot is a talented player, and they have a receiver in Trashad Linebacker who can go and get it done as well. So there could be a lot of points in this one. And at Lincolnton, they're going to be fired up. Out in that western part of the area there, there's going to be a lot of fans. It should be a fun environment. I briefly thought about going to that game, but I know our fans, closer to us like seeing us, here. So Shay Kwan last week, Shay Shottam, our guy, went to Hickory and Maiden last week. And he said he wanted to start doing some games further out. So he might go to this one. He was going to ask me, where he could go. And I might mention this one too. That could be a lot of fun. And then finally, Crest at Hunter Huss. We talked about Hunter Huss, being 5-2 earlier, avoiding the upset last week to Forest View. And the Crest team, who is coming off an impressive victory over Belmont South Point 42-7. South Point had beaten them the last 4 out of 5 times they played, and they absolutely went and shut down that triple option red bone attack that South Point has. So Crest might be rounding into shape here. It's a big game for Hunter Huss. They should have a good crowd there. We've seen it. we see when Hunter Huss is good, how those fans can come out. We went to a game when they were playing Kings Mountain. They were at home. Kings Mountain was undefeated, and we went in there, and it was so packed. I remember producer Brandon had to park in a neighborhood and walk back to the school because he couldn't find any parking spaces. And Hunter Huss won that game, and I was there with Coach McCoy. We had some great highlights, and he had a great quote at the end of that game that's still on those highlights today. So I hope Hunter Huss has a huge crowd, because that is a fun place when it's packed and those guys are going crazy. But Crest, given that performance last week, I think they're a big favorite here. But Hunter Huss has a shot. They have a shot to pull an upset and say that, hey, we're real. And you have to, start talking about us when you start talking about the best teams in the western part of the Charlotte metro area. All right. That is the deep dive. Let's see here. I want to finish up with one other thing, but I do got a question here from Stars linebacker Chris Worster from Stuart Kramer. Chris, the best thing I can tell you is you can subscribe. You can subscribe and see anything you want on Prep Red Zone North Carolina. I tell you, not only myself, but both Will Helms and Joshua Graham do a great job in covering the state along with myself. It's a lot. It's a lot to cover. And I know we just did a class of 2026 rankings update that had 600 plus kids in it. And, we were talking today and we said there's still kids that, we could have tried to get in there, man. But, North Carolina has some great football talent, and Prep Red Zone North Carolina is a great site. If you really love high school football, please subscribe. It's a low cost, and we talk about a lot of kids. I mean, not just the top kids. We talk about everybody. And that's why I love working with them. I've been there, I think, 3 years now. Will's been there probably about the same time, and Josh just joined us last year. Josh kind of covers the eastern part of the state. Will kind of, bases out of Raleigh area, but he'll, talk about, pretty much everybody. And then I pretty much do Charlotte Triad, and then, kind of to the west. So it's a lot. It's a lot to try and cover. And, we try to do our best, and, we really appreciate everybody that subscribes and supports it, because it really is for everybody. And I really like being affiliated with, people that have that kind of similar vision. All right. Edwin Barber also says Shelby versus Lincoln will be a great environment. It will be worth the drive. Yeah, it definitely will be. Like I said, I'm going to talk to our guy, Shaquan, and see if he'll want to go out there, because I think that will be fun. That will be a fun one to cover for sure. All right. To finish up the show tonight, we put out on social media not too long ago the Queen City Senior Bowl coaching staff for the West Side. Of course, we know Sam Griner is the West Side head coach. And we put out his staff, well-deserving guys that have done a great job with their respective teams so far this year. Coach Rydell Cowan at Statesville, Terrence Cunningham at Harding, David Devine at Burns, Ashton Simmons at Stuart Kramer, Jonathan Simmons at Palisades, Brandon Sneed at Hopewell, and Daryl Vereen at North Mecklenburg. All those guys are doing a great job with their respective programs, and they're all well-deserving to work for the West coaching staff under the leadership of West Charlotte head coach Sam Griner. So just want to shout those guys out for the job that they do. And it's going to be a fun Queen City Senior Bowl with those guys leading the charge for sure. All right. That being said, we've reached the end of our time here on Between the Lines, our deep dive of Charlotte Metro High School football. We hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks once again to South Lake Christian offensive lineman Hunter Tedder for joining us earlier to start the show off. Once the show ends, of course, you can go back and watch the replay. A lot of people watch the replay because I see it in the numbers. So I appreciate your support of Between the Lines and your support of CFI. We'll have an announcement on the CFI Winter Showcase coming up soon. That'll be our winter camp where we have college coaches come in to evaluate all of our players that will be in attendance. So stay tuned for an announcement on that real soon. And if you know someone that needs some exposure to try and play college football, it'll be a great, affordable opportunity for you. All right, everybody have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow on Football Focus Weekly on these same outlets at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a good night.